Hello everyone. My name is Seville, and I'm the president of the Canadian Helpers Society nonprofit organization to host today's event. It's a pleasure to see you here, showing your support and interest in our programs. We are here in the fourth event in the New Horizon for Seniors program series of this organization called Financial Literacy Session by Understanding Debt and Fraud with Krista Dubson. This session is funded by the federal government of Canada, and we are going to talk about credit card management, debt and fraud prevention, tips for financial planning, which are really important, especially in this time of the year. Before giving the stage to our speaker, I would like to do a territorial acknowledgement and also introduce Krista, who will be our today's speaker. I acknowledge that I'm located on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. The region of Waterloo is situated on the Haldimand Tract, land promised to the Six Nations that include 6 miles on each side of the Grand River. We respect and honor the diverse histories, languages, and cultures of all Indigenous people who call this territory home. We are committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. About Krista Dubson, she is financial wellness counselor at Camino Wellbeing Mental Health. So Camino is a kind of combined organization of Horizon, KW Counseling Services, and Monica Place, which is wonderful. It's one of the most successful organizations in the region of Waterloo, and they support individuals, families, and communities as they work to strengthen their well-being and mental health. So Krista is a dedicated financial literacy educator with extensive experience in delivering workshops like this one aimed at empowering individuals and communities. She specializes in topics such as credit card management, fraud awareness, strategic financial planning. Her workshops are tailored to address the unique challenge faced by diverse groups, including seniors and marginalized community, providing practical tools and strategies to protect personal finances and build financial resilience. So to make the best use of our time today, I'm excited to give the stage to Krista, and I'm gonna also share the screen so she can start. So just a moment. Perfect. Can you see my screen?
Yep, totally. Thank you.
Perfect. I'm gonna go mute it.
Thank you, Seville, for the introduction. I appreciate that. And yes, as part of Camino Wellbeing and Mental Health, I am a financial counselor there, and I can deal with many topics, and there is no cost to come connect with us and to connect with me. We offer workshops, groups as well. So if there's anything that you're curious about or have questions, you can always connect with me as well. So the first focus of the workshop, we're going to be talking about protecting yourself against financial frauds, scams, and how to prevent them. So I can do next slide too. Thank you. So common signs of scams and fraudulent activity, you might have heard some of these things. It never hurts to review them as well. So anybody that is trying to pressure you into making a quick decision, you need time to think, to process. So if anybody's trying to pressure you into immediate action, that's a very good warning sign. Request to keep things confidential and not to share details with local authorities, families, relatives. That's a sign as well. Why can I not share this information? Urgent messages, so with demands that you contact the sender immediately. Again, these are all time-sensitive pressure. Anything like that can be a red flag. Asking you to send money in unusual forms like gift cards or Bitcoins, prepaid credit cards. Those are unusual forms to be sending money or assistance. And they can have good reasons for wanting it sent that way. But again, that can be a very good red flag. If you're contacted by email or phone requesting financial information, like credit card number, bank account information, personal identification number like your PIN. Never give that out on email, never give that out over the phone by somebody who's called you. What you should do is, if you're concerned or curious or think it might be your financial institution, you can look up the phone number or it's back of your credit card or your debit card, and you can contact that bank or financial institution, whoever it is, and you can call in and say, hey, I've got this message. Or it could be Rogers or Bell, and somebody says that you need to contact us immediately or your service will be suspended. Call them yourself, because 9 times out of 10, it's not accurate. So that's a great way to find out if this is actually true or not. I can do next slide then. Thanks. So phishing and vishing scams are two common names of scams, but it would be basically phishing is a fraudulent online message. So phishing is anything to do normally with messaging, emails, text messages, and it looks like a legitimate financial institution is contacting you if you look at the picture that they put up, but you're probably going to find little signs if you look really clearly that aren't actually the same as that financial institution's site would look like, but they're very, very close, and it can be hard to detect it. So it could look like a financial institution, a retailer, or a government agency is contacting you. The message will direct you normally to click on a link in the message that they've sent you to take you away, to take you to a fake site that looks a lot like their service provider's site, and asks you to provide or verify your personal information like a credit card number, an online banking password. They'll ask for your social insurance number, which can be used to all these things could be used to take money out of your bank account or to steal someone's identity. So again, I strongly suggest if somebody's contacting you, not to give that information out. Don't click on a link. I'm sure we've all heard that, but at the time it feels stressful. So I always say, if you get some type of message like that, put the phone down or whatever it is, take a minute and breathe and say, is this real, or should I be cautious about it? And just taking that time to breathe can get us out of that state of stress and looking at this, and can put us in a good mindset to kind of process what's going on. Vishing is a telephone version of phishing. So people are calling you by phone to try and get this information as well. They're trying the same thing to obtain our personal information, same as above there. So fraudsters will call a person at home and leave a message or a voicemail even, saying their account is at risk, and ask them to call customer support immediately. They will leave the customer support number, but I would say call customer support. That's on the back of your debit card. That's on the back of your credit card, if that's what they're calling about. Or look up the numbers for Rogers or Bell, take it from your statement and contact them, not a phone number that's provided to you. They try to, again, get your trust. And if they get your voicemail, they will leave. Sometimes they leave this information, sometimes they don't, but they'll keep calling possibly till they get you. So if they get you in person, they're trying to gain your trust and make you feel comfortable that this is the company that you are actually dealing with, and confirm your personal information. So this is, again, the way they're trying to get things like your PIN number, your full name, your address, those kind of things. So you may receive an email that looks like a legitimate email from a service provider that says there's a problem with your account, and will provide you with false customer service support telephone number to call. When a consumer calls that number, an automated service answers and prompts them to log in by keying in their account number or password by using the telephone keypad. So that's, again, a way that they can track what that number is that you'd punched in. I can do next slide, Seville. Most common types of phishing scams. So telephone would be phishing. So what we just spoke about, where they're trying to contact you over the phone with a time sensitive issue, need to act immediately. Again, that's a red flag. Emailing you. So again, receiving, this is the phishing piece. They're phishing for information from us any way they can. So if you receive an email from a scammer that's impersonating a familiar business institution and has a hyperlink or downloadable document that's designed to obtain your financial personal information. So again, don't fill any personal information out over email, especially if you receive something you weren't expecting. Hyperlinks. So hyperlinks ask you to select this link, which again will take you away from the website. That will gather personal details such as your interest, recent online activities. Social media is another way to contact. So if you receive a message on social media platform of any type, pretending that they're customer support and ask you to share financial personal information about yourself. Again, a red flag if somebody is reaching out for this information via these ways. Text messages, the same as the emails from a scammer. It looks like it's the real financial personal information through the text message, or asking you to click. That will take you again to a website that will try to collect your financial and personal information. QR codes as well. That's something that's been on the news recently with QR codes, that if you access that QR code, it's taking you to a fake site as well, asking you to input information. So just anybody asking for that type of information, I say just be very careful. Contact them through the phone numbers that you have, through contact information you have already. Call them, whichever you're more comfortable with. Go into the institution if it's your bank. Different ways to protect you from the phishing and vishing scams. Ignore emails from unknown senders and block the sender from sending suspicious emails again. I get them all the time. I will block them. They find another way to get to you, but so you kind of get used to it after a while, and we're thinking everything is suspicious, but that's okay in a sense, because again, you can reach out and say, hey, is this real? And find that out, but just not through any email, text, phone, anybody who's contacted you for the information. You can reach out and find out if this is correct, but don't try to find that through any of the links that they've sent you. Messages from unknown senders. Even phone calls, most of us have call display. If it's a number you don't recognize and they don't leave a message, then it's probably not someone you know, and it's probably not important in most cases. So that's a good way to, if you're finding you're getting a lot of these scams over the phone, to watch your call display as well. So messages from unknown senders: don't open any attachments or follow any links to a third-party website. Beware of upfront fees. So a lot of scams will ask you to pay something. It could be a lottery scam. It could be a debt settlement scam. And they're asking for upfront fees to start this process. So you shouldn't have to pay. You should be able to, if it's for a debt consolidation through a bank, through a third party like a insolvency trustee, they're going to sit down with you, give you information, let you go home, think about it. Again, asking for a fee in that moment is a pressure tactic as well. Always look for the secure symbol, as legitimate websites that ask you to enter confidential information are normally encrypted to protect your details and identity. There are little tips too. So the HTTPS rather than HTTP, when you see the link at the top, if it's an email, or on your phone, if it's taking you to a site that doesn't look real, or it doesn't have that little lock symbol on it, I would say get out of that. Don't complete anything. Don't fill anything out. Let's see. Yeah, so it says, or the closed padlock or an unbroken key icon. So the little padlock we see with a lot of secure sites, banking, any of those kind of things, or the little key symbols. So if you don't see that, that is another warning sign. But again, anybody that's reaching out to you for this information, you should be the one reaching out for it. So if you're doing online banking, even when I open my online banking and I have the app, I still make sure that little lock symbol is there before I put any passwords or anything in there to do any banking. So just be conscious of that. Avoid sending sensitive information over email and text message. Never provide your personal credit card or online account details. If you receive a call claiming to be from your bank or any other organization, instead ask for their name and contact number and check with your organization in question before calling back. Or you could call, your institution, say, hey, I have a call from this person. This is the phone number. Is this your place or not? And they could verify that for you. I can do next slide now.
Sorry, after this one?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Oh, okay. Sorry. No. I didn't see. You can go back.
Okay.
I apologize.
No worries.
I know it's hard when we do the slideshows.
No worries. It's totally fine.
Thank you
I
so much.
apologize. No worries.
No, don't. Don't be afraid to say no. That's something that in our society, sometimes we're polite, so we're uncomfortable saying no. If you don't want to say no, just hang up. And I know hanging up sometimes is difficult to do, but in this case, you're protecting yourself. Request information to be sent to you in writing. If they won't do that, that's a very clear sign that this could definitely be a scam. Be careful of pleas that play on your emotion. So if, they're trying to stress you in any way, again, that should not be something that they're doing. Always verify an organization you're dealing with is legitimate before sending information, money, or gift cards out. And again, that's contacting through a number that you probably already have to verify this is actually true. Don't give out personal information like name, address, birth date, social insurance number, credit card, or banking information. That should not be anything ever you should have to give out over the phone. If it is a financial institution as well, they should have that information. They won't know PIN number, of course, but they would have that. I know they're trying to verify who you are, but they're also calling you. So they would have your phone number and name. So just be conscious of that and say, I'm not comfortable giving that information out. I will call into your institution and connect that way. Or again, just hang up. Protect online accounts and have a strong password and change them regularly. Banking institutions ask us to change these regularly as well, because sometimes we don't clear our web browsers, and it's easy to access that information and have a strong password. I know it's a pain in the butt to do that, because are we going to remember that? Possibly not, but if we write it down, don't keep it, in your wallet or anywhere somebody could find that, even if it's at home. Friends or family members could find it. I know we trust them, but unfortunately, if sometimes when people access that, they have now access to this information, even if they are family members or friends that we trust. So just be careful. It says use multi-factor authentication. So that means if you're doing online banking of any sort that, you've signed in, but now they're going to send you a text message that has a number in it that you can punch in so they can verify, okay, this is you because I sent it to your email address. You're the only one that should be able to access and punch that in if you're trying to go in. So that's another way that can try to protect you. Only log into your accounts from a trusted sources. So if you have your banking app on your phone and they're asking you to log in a different way, I would avoid that as well. Do not reveal personal information over social media. So that's something to be very careful as well. And even your background. So if you're taking a picture or something, what's in your viewing of that picture as well? So just be mindful of that. Okay, now I can do next slide. Thank you. So different ways you can protect yourself from scams and fraudulent activity. So just more ways. So monitor your bank statements and credit card statements regularly and thoroughly. I use this as part of budgeting. Sometimes people just use their bank statements, credit cards as a way to budget, which is fine. But I also say go through it thoroughly, because when somebody's trying to access your account, how they do this is very sneaky. They start with a very small amount. It's normally under $10. So if you're just skimming through your account, you're kind of in a rush, we're not looking at it too thoroughly, we might not notice it. And that's the idea. Our balance is pretty close to what we thought it was. So that's good. But if you look at it in thoroughly and look at the transactions. So are you familiar with what this is that's taken something out of your account? If it's a code you don't know, you can call into your bank. They know most of the codes as well, and can kind of figure it out. If they say, this one looks suspicious, okay, this maybe is fraudulent activity. They'll give you a new credit card. They'll give you a new debit card. If you go into your bank, they'll give you a new debit card on the spot, so you won't miss out any banking activity that you need to do, but you would have to change that debit card number and the number on the back with any companies that are taking funds out of your account, if it's for hydro or phone, if you're using your debit Visa. So you need to be mindful of that. Even if it's something you don't know, question it, call your bank and see, and they might say, oh, it's for this place. Oh, okay, that makes sense. I did make a purchase there. It's easy to forget those, and the codes aren't normally always the store names that you use. They might try taking a small amount twice. And a small amount isn't a big loss, but then they'll try a third time. They're making sure the account's active, funds in there, no issues taking it out. They could take all of the money that's remaining in there potentially, and then we have a bigger problem. So contacting your bank immediately, because they have a process to see if it is fraudulent or not. So we need that money if it's to pay our rent, to get groceries, those kind of things. So this is why I say check them immediately, check them regularly and thoroughly, because there could be an issue. There might not be, but it's better to check it. And I also say check your credit card statements and bank statements, just to make sure that even with your budget, that the funds are in there that you thought are in there, that we have enough for groceries, that I've paid these bills before I make this purchase, as well. So it's a good tool to incorporate into budgeting as well. Don't save your PIN online, like example, Amazon. I know my partner liked to do that. And lots of people do that because it's easier. And again, those passwords that we have can be complicated. So just be careful with that. I also use this for budgeting tools as well. If that PIN or password is in there to make a purchase, it makes doing unprocessed purchases a lot easier. So maybe I saw something on Amazon and it's like, oh, the person who bought this item also bought this. Okay, so I'm going to get this. I'm not even going to take the time to think about it. Is this a need or a want? So this is a great way to help with budgeting, not to put your PIN or your password in any of those shopping sites. Yes, we have to take the time. It gives us a minute to breathe, to process, do I really want to make this purchase, to find that PIN number and or password number and put that in for that purchase. So it can help us with any scams or fraudulent activity. If somebody's accessing our account and our PIN and or password is already in there, makes it a lot easier for them. And it also makes us easier for us to do spur of the moment purchases that weren't planned. So another good budgeting tip in there. Pull your credit reports, both from Equifax and TransUnion. Those are the only two credit bureaus in Canada. Not Credit Karma, not Borrowwell, all those online sites. The only way they're getting that information is from Equifax and TransUnion. If you use those sites, that's fine. But I also say if you don't, but it seems more convenient, remember this is another third-party place that now will be holding sensitive information like your social insurance number, your credit card numbers, because that will be on their database now because they have pulled it from TransUnion or Equifax with your permission to do so. So It's free to get your full credit report from TransUnion or Equifax. Unfortunately, it's free by mail twice a year. I say unfortunately because our Canada Post isn't up and running right now. But in future, fingers crossed, it should be hopefully soon. So it is a great way to see if there's any fraudulent activity on your accounts. The police has always asked us to tell people to check your credit report at least once a year. You can do it twice a year for free. And I say pull the full report, because those pieces that you get of your report from Credit Karma and Borrowwell are only small snapshots, and they're not accurately up to date. So they're about a month behind. It could be a month or a little bit more behind. And this is why, if there's a problem on your credit report and you pulled it from Credit Karma or Borrowwell, and you're contacting Equifax or TransUnion saying, hey, there's a problem, I pulled my report. On your report you get from TransUnion and Equifax, there is a number designed on that report for you, and they will ask you to quote that. And they will know if you've pulled it from their site or not. And they'll say, you have to pull it from our site, because that information actually could be correct, because it would be up to date on their site. So just be mindful of that as well. But it'll give you a whole breakdown of all your history, all your cards you have, what's happening. If you see something on there that you're not familiar with, then I would say contact Equifax or TransUnion. And when you pull your report from them, they make it easy. They give you a form. If there's any problems with your report, fill this in, send it back to us, and they will assign someone to help you with that. And if there has been any fraudulent activity or identity fraud or anything like that in the past, they have ways to help minimize that moving forward, because you can put a notice on there where they have to verify who it is that's trying to access your report. So there are ways that can help with that through Equifax and TransUnion as well. Logging out of your online banking accounts as soon as you're done using them. And I say clear the history as well when you're done using them. It's so easy not to log out. It sometimes feels like it's hard to figure out how to log out of those online services, but it's well worth taking the time to log out, because if they're left open, somebody accessing your phone or computer, it's already open and your password's already opened it for them. So be careful of that. Again, using secured websites when sharing personal or financial information or buying something online. Remember, it will send you to a locked, it'll have that little locked piece or that little key piece at the bottom of the link. Make sure that's there before you punch in that information. Let's see. Look for we covered this as well, but it doesn't hurt to remind us. So we are always having to protect ourselves. So look for websites with addresses starting with the HTTPS. If there's an S missing, again, they're just slight changes that hoping we don't notice. The same as if somebody is trying to access your bank account. Very small funds they take out. So they are trying to make it unnoticeable for someone just scanning it, or it doesn't really jump out at us. Keep your computer firewall or antivirus or anti-spyware systems up to date to try and help protect as well. Don't give your credit card information. We talked about this over email. Don't allow your computer, or mobile device to remember your passwords. I never have them remember anything. It is easier, I know, but it would be more inconvenient if something happens. Don't use public Wi-Fi or public computers to do online banking or shopping. It's way too easy for people to have better access to what you're doing if you do that. So any banking you need to do or look up, go back home or to a secured place with Wi-Fi to do that, because it's much safer. Again, it's inconvenient, but if something happened through fraud or scam, that's even more inconvenient. Yeah, and clear the history and the cache when you're finished. So again, it makes it more difficult for people to find out your access of places that you could possibly be banking as well. I can do next slide now. Thank you. If you experience scams or fraudulent activity, or you think you're a victim of fraud or a scam, there's different steps you can take to protect yourself. And you want to do this because it might not be a one-time thing. A lot of times scammers will connect again a second time or a third time for you as well. And they might even offer the promise of recovering the money, but they're going to ask you to pay a fee sometimes to recover this as well too. So again, this is where we go back to doing our due diligence. We want to protect ourselves. If we've lost money and this is the same scammer, just stop any activity with this, and stop all communications with the scammer. Change your passwords to any accounts that might be affected, as well as any social media sites. Contact your banks and other companies where any accounts may have been affected, credit card companies, hydro, utilities, telephone, cell phone, internet, all those kind of things. Again, I talked about the credit bureaus. You can put an alert on your credit reports. Again, they're watching who's trying to access information. So they'd be very careful about that. And I mentioned Equifax and TransUnion. They are the only two credit bureaus in Canada, but they don't share information. They're two separate companies. So if you're pulling your credit report, you want to pull it from Equifax and TransUnion. If you're putting alert on your credit report, you want to do it at both TransUnion and both Equifax. Again, they don't share information, but you want to make sure you're protected at both places, that the information is correct at both places as well. Also, contact your local police and Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre to report the scams or fraudulent activity, and give them as much information as you have about the fraud or the scam. So you're contacting your police, but they also generally suggest contacting the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. They work with the police. They collect all the scams that are going on. And the police and that site have a lot of detailed information that helps gather this information to build, what's going on with the scams, fraudulent activities, and build a case against whoever the person is, if it's one specific person that's creating these fraudulent activities or these scams. So things to have on hand as far as proof or information of what has happened, and good records as well for yourself, so you know potentially who to contact. Is it your bank, credit card company, my cell phone company, whatever it is. If I've done any Amazon purchases and I know my password's in there, definitely want to change that. So any correspondence with a scammer, financial statements, receipts, contact information the scammer used to contact you by, any websites or social media accounts that have been used. Avoid touching documents that the scammer may have touched if they have been mailed to you, and put them in plastic case or a Ziploc, covering if the scam occurred in person, even if a relative or friend, because if there's fingerprints on them and you're going to the police, that might be something that could be useful for them as well. And I can do next slide too. Thank you. So this is just more of this information. If you receive mail delivery and notice you're not receiving bills or statements from a place you used to always receive them, it could mean somebody's redirected your mail, which can happen. If that has occurred, it says to contact Canada Post, but also contacting who it is that you normally receive those statements for. If it's from your bank, from your credit card company, say, this is what's happening to me right now, or maybe I'm not sure, but I'm not getting the mail. Contact them. Not obviously, we don't get the mail right now, but contact them because they can see what address is on file if that has been changed. Notice credit card information is stolen or fraudulent activity on your bank statement. So notify your credit card. So this is going back to if you notice on your statement or banking statement, credit card statement, that there is some fraudulent activity, contact them immediately. They can, as I said, give you a new credit card or debit card with a different account number in most cases, remove those charges that were fraudulent. If they're simple ones and small amounts, it's normally not a big issue or a big investigation going into it, and they can return those funds into within a certain amount of days. If it's a bigger one, then there might be an investigation and it can take longer to get that money back. So this is where you want to act immediately with this. Again, you can contact the Anti-Fraud Center. I will have a link that has their website as well as a phone number. You can contact them. Lost or stolen passports, again, contact Passport Canada and the local police for something like that. If it's stolen insurance number or social insurance number, contact Service Canada Center. So again, it could cause potential harm, and this is where we don't want to get to this point. We want to try and protect ourselves. Even when if we're have the tap on our debit card, great, put your number over the when you're tapping over the account number. If you don't use tap and you punch in your PIN number, then, just block it with your hand. Or if we feel uncomfortable doing that, just if it's your wallet, you've taken it out, just hold it up there by it. And it doesn't really look like it's as obvious that you're protecting it. But it's better to be safe than not, than have to go through all of the fixing that you need to do if something like this happens. Okay, I can do next slide. Thank you. There are some resources here as well. So this is the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. They have a toll-free number. You can report any scam that may have happened or fraudulent activity, or they also have a link you can click on, but you can call if you're uncomfortable, as we talked about, clicking links and giving information, so that's fine. But again, it's a trusted site. You're going to look for the lock symbol on it. But again, you can also call and you're reaching out to them. It's not the other way around. But I just say this because after something like this happens, we're very cautious of connecting with places that we don't know. So you could connect with your police and police department as well, and they would normally refer you as well, or maybe they can report the information. Reasons to report the information. So information could link a number of crimes together, like I said, because they do work with the police in Canada and abroad. Information could progress or complete an investigation that's currently happening. Reports show crime trends and allow for crime forecasting. It helps the law enforcement, private and public sector, academic to learn about the crimes and help with prevention and awareness efforts for people as well. Again, the link for Canadian Anti-Fraud, and Canada.ca has scams and frauds, current frauds that are happening, how to protect yourself. So does the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. So if you're wondering what the frauds are that are out there right now, you can go to Canada.ca site or the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center, Ontario.ca. You can punch in scams or fraud and they will have information as well. And those are trusted sites to go to. Those would be the ones I would always say. I use Canada.ca, Ontario.ca quite a bit. It is a trusted site. It's updated regularly, and it will be for your province as well too, because Canada, basically Revenue Canada, does their information by provinces as well. So you know what might be more prevalent in Ontario then. I can do next slide too. So we have credit card management on this piece, and this can be something that if fraud has happened and maybe we need to repair things, build a new identity, but just to protect ourselves as well and manage these things, because the economic times that we live in right now are quite difficult. And our credit card management affects more than just our debt load. Our credit card, it affects our score by how we use our credit card as well too. And our credit report, our credit score are very important right now, just for the fact if we need to rent somewhere, they're checking our score. They're not just checking how we make our payment. They're looking at the big picture of our credit report. So that's how our score is made up, of how we bank, how much debt we have, all those kind of things, how long we've had credit for. So simple steps I've just put up here. Important to make a credit card payment on time. And it is really important because that's 30% of our scores based on, do we make our payments on time? So if we want a good score, this is a simple way to get a good score. Even if we're just paying the minimum, pay it on time and make sure that we're paying it to the financial institution. If it's the day the payment's due and I bank at TD, well, then I want to go into TD and pay this, because if I pay it, say at CIBC, The banks will not guarantee it will get there that day. They'll say it can take 3 to 5 days. So that's their protection. They're nothing to do with whether it gets there on time. So just make sure you make your payment and has enough time to get there if you're not going into that bank and paying it immediately. So if we have a Capital One card, we don't have a bank in Canada to go to pay that on time. It would take a few days to get to them. If you can, paying more than the minimum payment each month if possible. Maybe it's $10 or $20. It might not feel like a lot, but even those small amounts really help. And then it also will help with your credit score because you're paying more than the minimum as well. An extra payment, it's bringing that balance down a little bit as well. So that can help overall as well. So it's those little things that can really help with your score, even if we are carrying debt. Creating and managing your budget. So I put this in here because a lot of times people will use their credit cards, maybe even more so than their debit card. And in a sense, this is their budget. So I do say, if you're using your credit card to get points, if we can pay it all off, then great. But it still can affect our credit score. I will have people say to me, well, I put every purchase I make on my credit card and I pay it off when it's due. So that looks good, right? It's actually showing a history, and it's showing the history of how much credit we use on the credit card. People don't know why. I mean, the banks advertise points or bonuses on their credit cards because they want you to use them. But it doesn't mean we have the ability to pay it down or pay it off. So how it affects your score is they don't know why you're doing this. Maybe I just don't have enough money and I have to rely on my credit card. And when my income comes in, then I pay it off. So banks always err on the side of negativity of why these things are happening. If you want to get points and there's a really big purchase coming up as far as needing credit, if it's to buy a car or something, even if our credit isn't too bad, we want the best interest rate we can. So what I would say with that is every time you put a purchase on, well, we want these points. So we put a purchase on, wait 5 days and make a payment. So it's not for the cycle of the whole statement. If you're putting a purchase on, waiting 5 days and paying it, that will not show, it'll show that you can pay it, and it won't keep that cycle of building all this debt up for that month and then paying it. So it can help your score as well too, because they track history. If you just pay it off like a month before you need this credit check, they can go back and look at the history as well. So just be conscious of that piece of it as well. And I say wait 5 days when you make a purchase, because my best budgeters will say, great, I'll get gas, $20. I'll go across the street to my bank or do it online and pay it off. You want enough time for it to show there's been a purchase and a payment as well too, if this is why you're doing it to get points. Review all of your credit card statements and bank statements regularly. We've already talked about why to do this. We also want to make sure viewing them regularly is good, because if we find that we emotionally spend, looking at that statement can really be an eye opener. It's like, I don't have enough for this. Can I find another way to do this maybe a month from now? Or I'm getting groceries. Okay, have I done a list? Do I know what I need? Maybe there's something I don't need and I could replace that with something else that is more needed or I want that isn't too expensive. So different ways we could try to figure that out. Develop good spending habits. This is, again, checking our statements, knowing what a want or a need is, so we don't make spur of the moment purchases or emotional purchases as well. Always ask yourself if it's something that's not on your list or something you weren't going out to purchase, is this a need or a want? And be thoughtful about that as well. If we're feeling like maybe it is and we're in a store and it's just like, walk out of the store, you can come back in, but that change of setting can help us if we find that we do emotionally spend as well. Or if it's groceries, can we get our groceries online and just go pick them up? We don't have to then go through the store and see everything that's on sale, even if we've looked at the flyers and know. Again, being in the store, the visual can have a great effect on us as well. So if we find we're emotionally shopping, find another way if there's a better way to shop. And so with groceries, not being in the store sometimes is helpful. Ordering them online, picking them up, or having someone pick them up for you. If you're not comfortable going in and thinking you could spend something, then is a great way for that piece of it. If you're shopping online a lot and you're an emotional spender, what I say is that's fine. You can put it in your shopping cart, but I want you to sleep on it overnight. And if you wake up in the morning and you really, really still want it and you can afford it, okay, fine. But once we have that perspective change, we've had time from that, we've clicked it and put it into our shopping cart. The next day, do we feel the same about it? A lot of times we don't. Or if we see something we want, give yourself a 10-day challenge. Do I still really, really want this? Because a lot of times we forget about it. It's the spur of the moment. We see it. Oh, this looks great. But then it's not really as important to us as we thought as it was in the moment. I've talked about checking your full credit reports. Don't carry a high balance on your credit cards if you can avoid it, again, to get a good score, because 35% of your score is based on how indebted you are. And this goes back to those points. So again, every month, if they're looking at trends and you use a good chunk, if they say if you use a quarter or more of your quarter percentage of your credit availability, that can lower your score. So the closer you get to using half of it to a quarter or 3/4 of it to maxing out will really lower your credit score. Carrying no balance on it is helpful, but it doesn't mean don't use it to maintain your credit score. Put $10 or $20 on it. Once or twice a year. If you've already have a good score, but you don't want to use that card, but you want to keep it active and show that you're still responsible, using the credit and maintaining your credit score is something you still need to do. So if you have a good credit score, but you don't want to use the credit cards really, some people put a small subscription on it and they pay that monthly to keep it active. And it's a small amount that they're putting on. So that's another good way to keep it active and not carrying a balance on it as well, if you can. Again, if you're making payments, even if they're small extra payments to bring it down, that's still helping bringing down that balance as well, no matter how small they feel. You can consolidate debt if you're starting to feel that there's too much debt or you're unable to pay the minimum payments plus a little bit extra. Even if you pay a little bit extra, like if it's 7 years to pay off this credit card, but you're diligently doing it, 7 years isn't a long time, because if you're doing a repayment plan or a consumer proposal through a third party, it can take 5 years for those plans. And then you have to repair your credit. So 7 years is actually 5 years. Okay, we're paying down this debt. It's almost done. But as we're paying it down, our credit score is repairing itself. So we haven't done the extra step of doing a bankruptcy or proposal or a debt management plan, where we then have to try and get credit, repair our credit. If we have to do that, it is still possible, and there are good steps to do that. But while we're paying down the debt ourselves, if it's feasible to do, we're actually repairing our credit as we do that as well. Building an emergency fund is really important as well. And I have a lot of people who it's just, I don't have the money to do that. I've tried it. I've put $50 into my account, but I pull it out of my savings account because I need it in my budget. I just can't save. Doesn't mean you can't save. It's just the amount we were saving is too much. I often use this for savings. It's a visual I have. It's a pop bottle, 2-liter pop bottle. If you fill it with dimes, you'll have $700 worth of dimes. Right now, there's $50 in it, and it doesn't really look like it, which is great because then I'm not tempted to spend it. But it's a great way to have an emergency savings. I can't immediately access it. I'd have to roll it, take it into the bank. You can do this if you use debit as well. A lot of banks will have, when you make a purchase, they'll round up that purchase to the nearest dollar. So instead of spending just $1.60 on coffee, they're going to round it up to $2. They're going to put that 40 cents into my savings account automatically, and it can build a savings that way. There's some banks you can say, okay, it's 10 cents every debit purchase I make, because be aware that we can make a lot of debit purchases. We want to start small. We can build from there, but we don't want to put more into it and feel like we have to take it out of our savings, because that can feel like we can't save and we're defeating the purpose. So you can set the amount you want to go into a savings from every debit purchase that we make. And then it's a cushion there in case something happens. So I can't stress enough how important an emergency savings is, no matter how small it is, can help us in the future as well. Let's try next slide. I know we're getting close to time. This piece with the debit debt management, be aware of our interest rates on cards. So the lowest interest rate, 3% to 9%. It can be slightly higher, but these are Canadian banks. Just due to the economy, they will fluctuate from these ranges. Line of credits, 3% to 9%. There are higher lines of credits as well. It depends how they compound the interest. So it could be prime plus 5%. So be aware of that with lines of credits as well. There could also be a minimum amount you have to pay, not just the interest amount. So if we don't have enough, we have a smaller balance on there, we put $50 on, they're going to ask us to pay that whole $50 off, not the interest on the $50. Major credit cards can be anywhere from 12% to 21.9%. These are major credit cards at a Canadian bank. The bank loan, line of credit, major credit card are specifically with Canadian banks. They're normally lower interest rates. Store cards like Walmart, Visa, Petro-Canada, or Walmart MasterCard, Petro MasterCard, a lot of the MasterCards can be retail cards. They're 27 to 9% interest. Finance companies, so they don't pay today, pay in like 2 years. I think I saw one for 3 years advertised the other day. Or just finance companies themselves charge 29 to 39% interest. So just be aware of that. If we get turned down from a bank, sometimes we go to a finance company. But if we get turned down from a bank, we really don't want to deal with the finance company. Their interest rates are quite high. And if we miss a payment, their tactics to collect can be pretty difficult to deal with. Pay later schemes, like I talk about, don't pay for 6 months, 2 to 3 years. So maybe it's furniture. Interest rate is the same as a finance company because it's not that store. They're using a finance company for it with 29 to 33% interest. And if we miss that due date 3 years from now and we pay the next day, we're charged all the way back for that 3 years or 2 years or 6 months, of however long it was, of interest on that. So we have to be careful. I think the bottom one on there is payday stores. They charge 59% to 60% interest. The highest interest anyone can charge in Canada is 60%. So I do say stay away from them because they become quite difficult and we can just accumulate more debt with them as well. I know we're close to time. Do you want to go to, can you do the next slide? Because I think it's just a quick, tips for financial wellness. So this can be your whole thing you can use for budgeting, basically. If we know what our financial goals are, and financial goals could be, I want to start an emergency savings. Maybe midterm, I want to go on a vacation or a trip at some point. What are our financial goals? What are our spending habits? So financial goals are important to give us incentive to follow our budget, to save for whatever that is. Maybe it's just winter tires for the vehicle. It's still going to take time to save for. Track our spending habits. This is going through our bank statements, credit card statements. And do we have emotional spending? So for things that aren't charged, like gas for a vehicle, haircuts, writing those down and knowing how much we spend, how often we do those things are also part of our budget. We want to track as much as we can of our spending to know what our actual amount is that we have to spend on every month. So a lot of times we know our income because that goes into our account. Bank statement is a great way, credit card statement is a great way to gather this information as well too. If we specifically only use that for spending, it can be a really great way to figure out what we're spending per month from our income. Are we spending more? Are we spending less? And evaluate your spending to see where we are spending. those would be the 3 easy steps to budgeting. There are other steps like don't spend more than you make, but if you're following those 3 steps, you will be on track, because the biggest thing is we're looking at what we're spending and we're evaluating and revising our budget. And our budgets are not always the same month to month. We could have our budget be different 12 months of the year, and it's just because there's different bills that might come in, different occasions that might happen, that we have to spend more, or something, the emergency happened and I had to come up with the funds for this. So monitoring your budget monthly, I can't stress enough, is your best tactic to stay on track as well too. There's different, yeah, if you want me to go on, I can, with different savings tips. I know I covered some of them. Let's see. The 10-day challenge. So I did most of them. I'll do this really quick because a lot of times people find this is interesting. So a great way, if we're tracking our spending, so say I go to Timmy's and I get 2 coffees a day every day. It's a treat. I don't spend a lot on myself. It's $1.60 if I can get it in here without the glare. So it's $1.60. Doesn't look like a lot of money, but I do it twice a day. $3.20 still doesn't look like a lot of money. I do it every day of the week. So times 7, I'm spending $22.40 for 2 coffees in 1 week. For the month, oh, sorry. I should know how to use a calculator, right? I'm just doing these up again. I'm spending for the month $89.60 on coffee. So almost $100 on 2 coffees a day for the month, but I'm not done. One more. So for the year, I'm spending $1,075.20 on coffee. If I needed snow tires for the car, and I know a year in advance I'm going to need to do that, if I just get 1 coffee a day, if I divide this by 2, I am spending then $537.60, but I'm also going to have this in savings. So I'd have a little over $500. That would cover snow tires for my car anyways. And this is a great way that evaluating what we spend money on. I don't say cutting out an item if you don't want to. So when I do budgets with people, it's like, she's going to tell me I can't spend money on these things. You have to decide where you want to cut back, and it can be a very small item that can give you great savings to achieve that financial goal that you want. So evaluating where you spend your money, tracking where you spend your money, and then deciding, is this a need or a want? Is there a better way to do this? Can I make my coffee at home and take it with me, which is normally what I do. Now, because it's a great way to save money and cut that price down. So different ways to look at your budget as to where maybe we could cut back a little bit to either balance our budget or to save for those goals that we have. So I can leave it for there. I know I've gone over time, if that's okay. Yeah, and there's just that last piece on budgeting, but the pieces I went over are key. You're tracking your spending. You're knowing what's funds are coming in, what's going out. Are we balancing that budget? And if not, is there a way we can cut back? And if it is really difficult, or you're having trouble with debts and you're not sure what your options are, you can always connect with me. There is no cost to come see me, or there's workshops that I do, or a group I do around this piece as well, that we can always help with too, and no cost for it. So I thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Krista. Like, you have covered more than expected, honestly. So thank you so much. Don't feel bad. You have covered more than, and then we've received really great information that me, after living, I think 5-6 years in Canada, I've never even heard of it. So I'm really grateful. Thank you so much, Krista. They were gonna be very useful for all the, ages and generations. I have a few questions. Can you just point out like how we can pull credit card reports? Because it's like a free twice a year through Equifax.
Yes.
Was it Equifax?
Yeah.
And then TransUnion.
Yeah, Equifax and TransUnion. You can call them, or they have a form online that you can get. Going to their website, you can fill out the form. It asks for social insurance number. You do not have to write that in because you're mailing it in. It's easiest way is to call, and it will be automated. You can punch in the information you want or that they're requesting. They will mail you out your report, the full report, which is what I say is best to look at, because you're going to see if there's any strange activity, what past history is on there, and if anything is incorrect. Sometimes it could just be the address that is incorrect. Used to get tons of phone calls with, hey, I pulled my credit report, but it's the wrong address on there. So they get so much information coming in. Someone with the same name as you could have their information put on yours, and we might not even know unless we check that. So yeah, Equifax and TransUnion are the places I tell people to pull that information from.
Wonderful. Thank you
And it's
so much.
yeah, you're
It's
welcome.
perfect. It's perfect. Thank you. I can search for that. I've never heard of it even. The only way I know, like just go look into your like individual online banking and just like download your statements. I never known these kinds of like
Yeah,
service.
it won't be your banking statements, but it will
Yeah,
be what credit you have, what your balances are, all those kind of things. Good to check
got
that.
it. Got it. So they are not in detail like what we spend. Is this in detail? Okay.
No, but you'll see, like, is the balance way off? Is this not a credit card? So this is a good way to see if
Mm,
there's fraudulent activity as well, right? Is this a credit card that's been opened in my name that I don't have? Is this just on my
mm,
account because it's an error? Someone with the same name as
got it.
me. It happened to my father years ago when he was opening a
Mm,
business, and he was denied because it was someone else's very common name. It was someone else's information, credit information on his report. So just another reason, not just for the any fraudulent activity, but just to make sure that's correct even before we try to make, like, if we're purchasing a home or a vehicle and we've never checked it, it's not going to hurt to check it.
wonderful. Thank you so much, Krista. I appreciate it. And one just last question. I know we don't have time. If we pay a bit more than the minimum payments of our credit cards, is it gonna affect negatively to the credit score? Like if we don't pay like the full balance, like how it works?
Oh, yeah. So I say it's feasibility. What can we afford, right?
Hmm.
So we can pay the minimum payment. I would, yes, advise definitely paying the minimum payment for sure. Because remember, I said your score is made up of a few different percentages.
Mhm,
35% of your score is made up of how indebted we are. More
mhm,
we can pull it away from that max, the better our
mm.
score will be.
Got it.
However, making the payment on time, even if it's just minimum, that's 30% of our score, and that can still help. So if we miss a payment, that, especially now, that can really lower our score, and that means we have to make sure every payment after that is on time, because over time that will bring our score back up by making that payment on time. So even if we are close to being maxed out, making that payment on time can still help our score, and it can still
Okay.
give us a good score by doing that.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you so, so much. Is there any
Yes, very welcome.
questions? We don't have much time, but if there is, I can share your
Yeah,
even
Krista,
email address. Sure.
one quick
Mhm.
question. Because as much as I see, there are many questions, and already we don't have time to continue. I will check our schedule. If there is space in our schedule, and I will check with you. And if you have time, then we can have one more session.
Of
Are
course.
you okay with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, if the questions are based around something certain, then I can kind of review briefly and or answer the questions that have come up from this. I'd be more than happy to. Yeah.
Yes, because already I have a couple of questions, and I see
Yes.
many people have questions, and
Yes.
it will take maybe 1 hour to answer all these questions.
No worries. Yeah, for
So
sure.
I will check if we have
Yeah.
space, and then I will check with you. Then we can have one more session together.
For No, for sure. And I'll just add really quick too, like the group that I do throughout the year, we cover a lot of these in a 6-week group. And so a lot of questions will come up as well. The group is free. I think it's starting the second week. They haven't confirmed it yet. The second week in January from Thursday night, 5:30 to 7:30. So, I mean, if you have my email, you can connect with me and I can get you registered if that's something you want to do, but it will cover a lot similar information to
Yes,
this as well, too,
meantime,
just in a lot more detail. Yeah.
meantime, if you don't mind, I prefer again we gather in a session and
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do that. Yep, for
thank
sure.
you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Krista. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.